give to be able to have an hour in Heavenly Father's presence? And I thought on that, like, boy, wouldn't that be cool? And then she says, we have that privilege every time we pray. I thought that was an interesting thought. But this is from Elder Bednar. He said this, he says, there is no physical pain, no anguish of soul, no suffering of spirit, no infirmity or weakness that you or I ever experience during our mortal journey that the Savior did not experience first. You and I, in a moment of weakness, may cry out, no one understands, no one knows. No human being perhaps knows, but the Son of God perfectly knows and understands, for he felt and bore our burdens before we ever did. And because he paid the ultimate price and bore that burden, he has perfect empathy and can extend to us his arm of mercy in so many phases of our life. He can reach out, touch, and succor, literally run to us and strengthen us to be more than we could ever be and help us to do that which we could never do through relying only upon our own power. I just like that thought. Do you ever think that Christ has the sum of all experience? And if we're seeking for help, isn't it nice to go to someone who's experienced it all before? Okay, today we're continuing on insurance. Hopefully Tyler's presentation was good. We didn't have time to get through all of that, but realize insurance it does well what it does. It's just an expensive product. So we just need to be very wise in what we're doing. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. Today we're going to work on a number of different types of insurance. We'll start first with auto insurance, then we'll get into homeowners. I don't add an awful lot on health insurance, mainly because it's so up in the air. So we first added this stuff on Obamacare, and now we may have to take it out, but we'll go through that. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do on your personal financial plan for today. Insurance. Today we're going to work with liability, auto, and homeowner/renters insurance. And again, with each of these types, answer the question, do you need it? Do you have it? What are the types, costs, coverage, and discounts? And your action plan, what should you have? What are the costs and coverages? We'll give you some recommendations. And then I would like you to hand in a copy of your CLUE report, Comprehensive Loss Underwriting Exchange. Now, the other day, very few people know what a CLUE report is, and so what we'll do is we'll talk about that. And then I asked Byron volunteered to pull up.
One question, how long do accidents remain on a CLUE report?
It's a 5-year loss summary.
Okay, so it'll probably be off of there.
That's all right. We'll let you run it anyway. If nothing else, I can show you mine. With lots of teenage kids, we have lots of accidents. So, and I think our most recent one was November of last year. So the question is, some people think that, when you go to insurance companies, they don't look up and they don't see what you've done before. And that's not the case. There's a report that's very similar to your credit report that says what have insurance companies paid out on your behalf. And under the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction of 2003, you can get a copy of your CLUE report once each year. So your CLUE Auto, which is a 5-year loss history, and if they paid things out, and number 2, a CLUE Personal Property, a 5-year loss history there. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to have Hunter come on up, and I'm just going to click here on Personal Reports, LexisNexis. So it's going to bring us to this page here. So you're going to click on the one that says Insurance Report, bottom right, or for you, bottom left. Okay, we want to do both reports. Okay, CLUE reports, or just click on both reports. Order now. So now you're going to have to create a new member. You're going to have to create an account. And it's going to do very similar things. If you've got your computer, why don't you do that? Again, go to LexisNexis.com. And then while he's what they do here on this is they're going to ask him, he's going to fill out the information. They're going to ask him those same questions. So there is proprietary information here. How do you know if you're on a safe website? HTTPS, is this one a safe website? Yeah, so it's secure. So I'm going to close this off, and while he's filling that out, Social Security 291-362-4597. And I'm just going to give you some stuff. This is called I'm a danger to myself. So this is before you choose your health plan. How many people are going to have to choose a health plan within the next 6 months? So a lot of us here. So here's some key questions to ask. Number one, what is the real bottom line? You know, a lot of times when people think of health plans, they only think of their monthly payments. There's a deductible. Annual premiums aren't the whole story. There's a deductible before benefits kick in. Make sure you understand how it works. I'm starting to see policies where the deductible isn't just annual, but per instance. My dad, before he passed away, I took him to a doctor's, and in one visit, we went 5 different places, and he had $125 in deductibles just from that one visit. So realize it's not just the annual, the animal cost that kicks in. Number 2, how well are you protected against catastrophic costs? You know what? You need to find out if your plan limits how much you'll pay for your care annually or over a lifetime. Now with Obamacare, there is no lifetime cap, at least as far as I understand. But be careful. If there's a low lifetime cap, say $100,000, you could go through that very quickly. Number 3, will you be able to use your regular doctors? Call the plans that you're considering for a list of participating providers, or ask your employer's benefit manager. Since MDs accept a range of plans, you may be able to continue with your current doctors at no extra cost. When we were in San Francisco, there was a doctor my wife liked, and it wasn't on the plan. And so what she did is she went to the doctor, and the doctor actually got included on the plan and was able to. She was able to use him. How complicated is it to see a specialist? In an HMO, usually the least expensive but most restrictive, you'll need to work through a primary care physician. The doctor acts as a medical gatekeeper and decides if a referral to a specialist is necessary. PPOs, you're normally free without getting authorization, but just be aware. And number 4, do you have a choice of hospitals? You know, we lived in Walnut Creek. We lived about 3 miles from John Muir Hospital. And so thankfully that was on our plan. But, you know, some medical plans, you may have to go 10, 15, 20 miles to get to the hospital. That's acceptable. So be aware. Number 6, are your prescriptions covered? If the plan includes a pharmacy benefits, ask for its formulary, the list of prescription drugs it covers. Many plans have tiered cost sharing where medications are grouped into 2 or more price categories. You might have a small copayment, like 10 or 15 for drugs in the lowest tier. You'll pay even bigger ones for brand name drugs. So just be aware. And number 7 is what other benefits are included. Some policies may cover dental, vision care, hearing aids, well child care, or adult physicals, things like that. Just be aware. Okay, did they ask you the questions?
Yeah, but then all it says is submit changes, and it goes back to the first page.
Okay.
So you do all these, Oregon.
Okay, submit changes.
Submit changes.
Yeah.
It takes me back to the first page.
Now click on order now. Both reports. Okay, continue. Let me just push you on. So now, he's got products. Okay, let's click on that clue report. Okay, so here is his auto claims report. Byron Joseph Hunter, okay. The good news is you can never have as many Byron as I have. In fact, there's another professor here, and he and I, we have competition to see which child has done the most damage with our automobile insurance. Geico Casualty Insurance, here's the amount they paid. Collision, the status is open. What was the date on that? So 9/25. Claim 2.
Oh, yeah.
So what it does, though, These are the things that your insurance company will look at when they're deciding to take you on as a customer. Do they have to take you on as a customer? Actually, no. So is it important to understand what's on your loss record? And if you have teenagers, will this be on your record? And the answer is yes. So be aware of it. I'd like everyone to at least try to get your clue report. Most of you you'll answer because you haven't had it a record, things like that. You just say, I have no data. I have no clue report, and that will be sufficient. But I'd like each of you to do it. Again, when it's important, when you're thinking about changing insurance people, this is what they will look at. Austin.
When we're creating a new account, it asks us if we want a fact insurance report only, or if we want to order using a credit card insurance and credit score reports. Which of those?
You don't want to do any of those.
Click the both reports and click submit now. The two
Yeah.
options below say you have to have a credit card for those.
Yeah, you don't have to have a credit for this, just like with a.
Yeah, so just the.
Okay. Questions? David, go ahead, and Oren.
So what if I got in an accident on my parents' insurance, but I was operating the vehicle? If it's on like my parents' insurance, would that show up on their clue report?
It'll show up on theirs, and it'll probably show up on yours too.
And it would show up on mine too.
So you'll find out really quick.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Wouldn't it just follow the social security number?
Truthfully, I'm not sure. I would assume that that's the case, or a driver's license number too. Let's go down and see if there's any more. You just have 2. You know, like I said on mine, I think I have like 13. And I'm not sure the length that it stays on here. But often what you'll find is a whole bunch of small claims like $50. And what those are is those free glass chip repair. I've got a number of those. Mitch.
So what's like the main advantage to knowing this report? Can you like dispute anything, or you just know it so you know what the insurance is looking at? Or?
And here's the question. Do all insurance companies price the same risk the same?
No.
The answer is no. But it's important for you to know what's on here when you go and when you're going and thinking either of getting insurance, changing insurance carriers. It's kind of like that credit report. And if there's things on here, you can actually, when you go on, you can actually say, well, this is what happened here and this one here. This was actually not the case, and you could actually give them a little bit more background information. But different insurance companies price risk differently, and so it's important. The key thing is just shop around. Oren.
What's like the likelihood of fighting a claim? Because I heard like insurance companies will just pay out. They just don't want to deal with it, so just pay out pretty quick.
Yeah. My daughter's accident was kind of an odd one, and even though she was theoretically on the insurance company that says she was at fault, in my mind, there's some extenuating circumstances that it wasn't. But there's not much you can do on these type of things here, because this is really just an internal report, but it's nice to see what goes on it. And also, when you get to, do you own a house? So when you get to that homeowners, realize if you make a lot of small claims, there's a chance that the insurance companies are not going to cover you. So in cases like that, understanding what's on that, we haven't made a claim in our place in 17 years, but we're really careful. So what did we do? We kicked the deductible up, at least for our homeowners, to like $3,000. And most of the damage we've had so far is just under that limit. Okay. Hunter, thank you. Do you want to save it to a...
I can just log back in and...
Okay. Okay. So let's go back to our questions. What can we do to reduce our medical costs? I mean, we're all going to be diet next. How many people got up and ran this morning? Okay, good job. Good job. I think. So in addition to getting up and running and things like that, what else can we do? Thoughts? Eat well. I'm finding the most important thing I can do is just get enough sleep at night. Sleep is a big deal. Annual checkup. So I had my blood drawn a couple weeks ago, and I go in tomorrow to check out. And I'm on blood pressure medicine and cholesterol and stuff like that. Other things. Here's just some thoughts. Healthy lifestyle. Why is a group plan less expensive than an individual plan? Thoughts? Oren?
Just like an economy, you create an economy of scale.
Yeah.
Like your business is just buying so much.
Yeah.
Like a discount.
Medical reimbursement or flexible spending account? How do those work out? So who does that? Is that through your company and your insurance company? I've got this Benny card. My wife gave me instructions tomorrow when I go in to make sure I pay with that. What's happening with these flexible spending? What's the benefit? What am I doing? Right, I'm paying for my medical expenses with pre-tax dollars. Health savings account. There's some information on those. Go ahead, Tanner.
Just so I understand health savings accounts, like that doesn't really work as it kind of works as like a debit card. Like you just have money on the account and then you pay everything out of pocket.
Right, so you
wouldn't
pay
have
things out of
insurance.
part, and then you have basically basically once you get to a certain level, then the insurance kicks in.
So there is like an insurance.
Right. So it's basically a high deductible plan.
Okay.
So, and there's more information on the slides there too. What's COBRA? Oren.
Cobra is something the government set up so when you lose your job, you can keep your insurance. So you have to pay.
First, right. So you pay all the expenses, and you keep it until your next job goes up. When we retired to go from asset management to teaching, there was a 6-month period there that I went on COBRA until we started here at BYU. How about if you have a spouse that's already getting coverage? Do you have to have coverage? Or could you just take the spouse's coverage and then, you need to have coverage, but do you both have to have coverage? So if you're included on a spouse's coverage, you may not have to have it yourself. The important thing, unless you already have coverage. So just some things to remember when it comes to health insurance. Okay, I don't add an awful lot there, so that's about all we're going to say about health coverage. Yes?
In the reading it mentioned staying on your parents' insurance, 26. Is that something that you recommend? Like if I'm graduating and I'm going to get a full-time job and have benefits, should I use the company's benefits, or would it be better for my husband and me to stay on our parents' insurance for the next 2 years that we can?
I'd actually figure out what the cost is. What's the cheapest cost? I know I had my daughter on her insurance until she turned 26. And it was cheaper for her to be with us than it was to.
Pay back to you instead of.
Yeah. So I would just check the all-in costs. Oren?
I know it gets like confusing with that if you're planning on starting a family.
Uh,
If you have like a child and you're on your parents' insurance, the child isn't covered on your parents' insurance as well.
So be aware of the coverage. Like everything else in insurance, make sure you understand what are you trying to accomplish. Understand your budget. Understand the benefits and costs of each thing. And so you really need to do your homework on this. Insurance is really a critical thing. Okay, I'm going to start with 4 stories on insurance. I apologize for using personal stories. We took a job in San Francisco with a company called Montgomery Asset Management. And, so we moved our family from Arlington, Virginia here. And we had our 6th child. And we decided we wanted to go skiing. My wife and I were not big skiers, but we enjoyed it. And so we had this GMC extended van, pop-up things. This is way back when, And it had, we only had 6 kids in it, but it was pretty big. And needless to say, we were getting ready. We had a friend who had a cabin up in Tahoe Donner. And so we decided we were going to go up and we were going to go ski. So you know how it is with 6 kids. And needless to say, I have this little 4x6 trailer that I put on the back of the GMC van. And we put all of our stuff in it, all our ski stuff. And, we still had babies, so you have your strollers, bassinets, and all of that stuff there. Here's a couple of thought questions. These extended vans, these GMC big vans, and it used to have the pop-up top. Actually, I bought it from my sister. Are they four-wheel drive or just front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive? Rear-wheel drive. How well do they work in the snow? They don't. And we were coming up I-80, and you come off here to Tahoe Donner, and it was snowing, and it was icy. So we came here, and the road kind of turned around here. Well, the cabin was up here, and there was this road here. So we came off. Again, we have this trailer on it. You know, we got 6 kids in there. The baby is about 6 months. We turned here, and we turned to go up this way here. The problem was right here was a hill. And you know, rear-wheel vans, especially pulling a trailer, they're not very, they don't have a lot of traction. So we started going up this hill with a trailer, and it wasn't a steep hill, but it was, you know, it was enough that you could tell it. And the roads were icy. And so we started going, we got up just a little bit here, and all of a sudden the tires just started spinning. And I just, you know, I thought, well, that's okay. You know, I was trying to be the prepared dad. I had the chains. So I went out and thought, this is not a big deal. I went out and put the chains on the van and got back in the car, and I expected to continue, and I drove about 3 feet more, and the tires just continued to spin. And I thought, this is not much fun. So I'm about right here on the hill. Here's the van. And needless to say, when you have a long wheelbase vehicle and a short wheelbase trailer, how easy is that to back up? Not very easy. So I'd start backing up, and needless to say, I'm not very good at backing things up. And the nice thing is I'd back up till I'd almost get a jackknife, and then I could actually go out and push that trailer around because, number one, it was icy and it wasn't a big trailer. So I started backing down this hill, and these people would come down the hill, and they'd look at me, and then, you know that look? I can tell you're from the Bay Area because you don't know how to drive in snow. You know, you get those kind of like the California drivers get here from the Utah drivers, you know. And so I was, you know, we got like 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 of those people coming down, and there was a little road right here where there were some houses. So I got the idea that I'll just back my trailer here, and then we'll come back down here, and there's actually another way that you could get to this place. Well, I was backing down, and I had my trailer in about 2/3 of the way in here, and all of a sudden, this blue 4Runner comes over the hill, and he is going way too fast. And all of a sudden, I could see what was going to happen. And so I said, hold on. So my 4-year-old was standing behind they were captain's chairs on my wife's side. My wife had the baby. So the 4-year-old just grabbed that thing really quick. And I still see in my mind's eye, I can see that thing coming before us. I can see the airbags exploding. And thankfully, because we were on ice, instead of causing us to roll, and you know, realize my kids were watching TV, they were out of their seatbelts, it just shoved us back. Okay. So story 1, hold that story in your mind. Okay? Let's go to story number 2. He's taken my daughter Emily and her friend Brenna, and we were coming back. I think it was called Sunshine Generation. They were like 8 years old, and it was this little kids singing group. And it was really fun for your kids to give them a chance to sing and to dance and get that. And we were on 8th East and Orem. You know where 8th North is? Then 8th and East, and here's your kind of your WordPerfect buildings. Well, I was just coming around. I was in that Mustang. So I had them both in the back seat. I was coming around here, and then here's the kind of the cemetery field. For those of you who play soccer, you probably played soccer in that area. And I was just coming around here, and this is an open space, and this is open space here. And I was just driving. It was about 8 o'clock at night. I was probably doing 30, 35 miles an hour, which is the posted speed limit. And all of a sudden, I heard, bam! My daughter Emily goes, Dad, what did you hit? I didn't see anything. And so we pulled over here, and I got out of the car, and I started walking around. And then I noticed some fur on the right-hand quarter panel. And what had happened is I didn't hit the deer hit me. So the deer was running this way across the street, and our timing happened to be perfect, and it hit that right quarter panel. And needless to say, it did significant amounts of damage. Yeah, what I didn't notice is there was a policeman right here. And so as soon as he saw what happened, he turned on his lights. And he came and he said, so we talked a little bit. He got my license, and he said, Mr. Sudweeks, get back in the car. Now, what a deer is an uninsured motorist. This is say about 3 seconds later, I heard a bam. And you don't want to be an uninsured motorist in Utah because they put you out of your mission. No. But that's story number 2. Story number 3, and we'll bring all of this. I'll bring all of this together. I have a good friend who's sells insurance in Park City, and he was relating the story. So my story was about a deer. He says, in Park City, he says every year that there are 2 to 3 people that are killed each year from hitting elk or moose. What's the difference between a deer and an elk or a moose? Size. So if you hit a deer, and I've hit one. I hit a deer once that was going to the temple. I was just here in Provo. I've probably hit 3 or 4 deer. But what happens with your cars generally? What do they do with the deer? They're small enough, so what do? Kind of push them out of the way. What happens with an elk or a moose? So the height of the deer we know because we have like 15 of them that are in our backyard. I know I clean up after them every spring. What happens when you get to elk or moose? This tall. So when you hit a deer or hit an elk or a moose, what happens to the main weight of the deer? Basically, it comes back into the cockpit area. So what happens is people, when they hit these, they knock the feet out from under them. The whole body comes back right in the area where the drivers are. And so 2 to 3 people are killed every year in that area. So just be very careful. 4th story, and we'll tie these all in a little bit. I have a nephew. He was visiting his dad and then in Salt Lake, and then they were on their way to Idaho to visit her parents. And they had all their Christmas presents in the back of their Blazer. So all the Christmas presents, and they were excited about it. They went out the next morning, and someone had broken their back window and stolen all of their Christmas presents. Everything from the back of the car. Okay. So 4 stories that will tie in. What I'd like to do now is let's bring up some insurance quotes, some insurance forms, so you can kind of get a sense. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to explain a little bit about it. And sometimes it's easier to do this. I apologize if you can't see that very well. This is about as good as we can. So again, here's the insurance. I told you my brother's my insurance agent. So works pretty good. Here's the VIN. This is our old Expedition. This is the one we gave to my daughter with almost 200,000 miles. Again, our goal is 200,000 or 10 years, whichever comes first. 2006. So start with this. Notice major, minor citations and accidents. Does that have an impact on your insurance costs? And the answer is yes. So my kids know that if they're ever in an accident or if they ever get a ticket, they have to go to traffic school. They paid those costs. They have to go there. I think it's worthwhile. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, it is. So be aware there too. Okay, so here is coverage is bodily injury and PD is property damage. Utah has what are called split coverage. 250, these numbers are in thousand, 250,000 per person, 500,000 per accident, and 100,000 in property damage. Any idea what state requirements are for the state of Utah? And I'll give you an idea. They were established in 1970. It's actually 25,000 per person, 50,000 per accident, and 15,000 in property damage. Anyone been to a hospital lately in an accident? How long were you in and what was the cost? Pardon me?
Probably more than $25,000.
More than $25,000. How many? You know, I took when my daughter was in. My daughter was in the accident, we just took her in just to get her checked out, and my guess it was $5,000 or $6,000, and we were only there for 4 hours. So just at a rough estimate, say $5,000 for 4 hours. So just make sure you're not in the hospital. The person's not in the hospital for more than 20 hours, or you're going to be responsible for anything over that excess. Notice too, $15,000 for property damage. How many cars out there can you fix for $15,000? Kia? Hyundai? I don't know. Chad?
Quick question. So these numbers that you're giving us,
Uh-huh.
are these what the insurance company will pay if we cause an accident to someone else, or what are they the charges?
These are the limits of their liability. So their liability for bodily injury, they'll pay up to $250,000 per person, or up to $500,000, and that's our coverage. And I have to have this amount of coverage because I have what's called an umbrella policy, a liability policy on top of this. Okay, so that is for bodily injury and property damage. Let's say you're a scout leader. You're taking a bunch of scouts to scout camp, and you did not do a tour permit. So do you have that additional coverage from the scout office, the scout program? And the answer is no. So let's say you have 6 scouts in there, and each of them are, $200,000. 6 times 200, 1.2 million. What's the maximum your policy will be? 500,000. So is it important to be wise in your insurance? What's the recommended coverage? Is minimum coverage in the state of Utah, is that 25, 50, 15? Is that a good coverage amount? Actually, no. I recommend 100, 300, 100. And we'll actually show you how cheap it is. How about uninsured motorists? Are all the motorists in Utah insured? No. You know what the number of uninsured motorists are? 1 in 5, almost 20%. So what happens if you hit someone who's an uninsured motorist? Or if they hit you? So your insurance will actually pay up to those limits as well. How about will it fix the vehicle? Notice property damage is not covered. Okay, so be wise in your choice of liability, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Medical no fault, what that is it just says in case there's an accident, they'll write this $3,000 out without question. Used to be insurance companies would be fighting between themselves who's responsible for this coverage. And between that, and people weren't getting the coverage. People weren't getting the help. And so now they put in this medical no fault that regardless of who it is, they'll get that help first, and then you can worry about it. Let's go back. Do both insurance companies, when there's a wreck, do both insurance companies pay for that? Oh, what does it depend on? Yeah, so it actually depends on which person was at fault. Let's tell a quick story. Let's go back to my story number 1. So when that guy hit me, we called the policeman. And the policeman came and he says, well, I want you to come back and sit in my car. We're going to talk. So the policeman took up the discussions. And so he talked to me and he asked me, he says, well, how fast were you going? And I says, well, I was in reverse. I was going probably 1 mile an hour. Because I was going and had to get out and move the trailer, so I couldn't go too fast. I don't know how to back up very well. He talked to the other guy and he says, well, how fast were you going? And the guy goes, well, I was only going like 5 miles an hour. Let's see, 5 miles an hour, your airbags exploded, 5 other cars came by and had no problem stopping at all. But you know what I did? I was kind of the nice guy. I didn't say a single thing when the other guy spoke. I didn't tell him that there was 5 other cars who came by, drove around me without any problem at all. I didn't tell him that, look, your airbags exploded, so you probably weren't going too fast. About 6 weeks later, I got this notice that says, okay, we've looked at the accident. You were both at fault. But Mr. Sudweeks, you were 51% at fault, and the other guy was 49% at fault. Guess whose insurance company had to pay? Mine. And they paid for mine and for that. Did that cause my insurance prices to go up? And the answer is yes. Okay, so what lesson do we learn there? Yeah, number one, you don't admit fault, but boy, yeah, don't be nice. So make sure you explain to the police officer the things that you saw. And don't be intimidated by what the other people hear. Okay, so $3,000, comprehensive deductible, collision deductible. What's comprehensive in collision? What's collision? Okay, well, let me just do comprehensive. And this is just from, again, it's farmers. You know, I teach what I have. We will pay for loss of your insured vehicle caused by accidental means except collision. Loss caused by missiles, falling objects, fire, theft, larceny, explosion, earthquake, windstorm, hail, flood, water, vandalism, riot, or civil commotion, colliding with a bird or animal, or breakage of glass is not deemed loss caused by collision. So all of those things. Let's go to story number 2. Was that, when I hit the deer, was that collision or comprehensive? That was comprehensive. Now here's the question. When you hit a deer, does that cause your insurance to go up? No. So generally the answer is no. Did I still have to pay my $750 deductible? Yeah. So, but the point here is, if it's comprehensive, generally it doesn't cause your insurance to go up. And I say generally there too. Let's go to story number 3. So what does that tell you? You're driving along on a road and you see the deer out in front. Here's a question. Let's say I swerved to miss the deer and hit a telephone pole, which caused the wreck. Is that collision or comprehensive? It's collision. Will that cause my insurance costs to go up? And the answer is yes. So as much as we love Bambi and we're seeing these deer going down, if it's not safe to swerve, what do? You hit the deer. Story number 3. Story number 3. Now you've got the elk and the moose. You know, if you swerve to miss the elk and the moose, it might be collision. What's the difference here? Your life is at stake. So as much as we would rather be alive and pay a little bit more insurance costs than we would be to be dead and not have to increase our insurance costs. So beware of those things there. Okay, collision deductible, $750. And then we have some other towing and other stuff here. Notice here that we can actually see the premiums by coverage. Bodily injury, your liability coverage, 110. Uninsured motorist, deductible, and collision there. So realize we'll actually look at some other, the teenage vehicle in just a minute. And then notice here's a bunch of endorsement numbers. What are endorsement numbers? They're really just kind of things to protect the insurance companies. So for example, I've got an E1417, it says here, it is agreed that if a loss to auto safety glass is repaired rather than replaced, the deductible applying to coverage F, damage to your car is waived. So instead of if I have my safety glass repaired instead of replaced, I don't have to pay the deductible. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of those there, and really just kind of to protect the insurance company. So, and here's some information, coverage, endorsement, things like here. Then this is probably one of the most important areas here. Those are your discounts. So guys, have you heard these radio announcements say, well, come to us and we'll tell you what all the other competitors pay. These competitive insurance companies, we know what their rates are. Are the rates that you see published, are those really the rates that you will pay? And the answer is not unless you can go through and get all the discounts. So one of the big things you should be doing every year is to sit down with your insurance people once a year and say, okay, how has our life changed? How have our insurance needs changed? And then say, what are additional discounts that we could get? I just went into the registrars. So I have a daughter who's here at BYU, a freshman, and we have a good student discount. And they had to go in, and the registrar actually had to fill out a form that says, okay, their grades are good. Those good student discounts are important. Accident-free, ultra-preferred group, they found that people who are teachers or things like that were, I guess because we're so boring, we make fewer accidents. 30 to 60, that was before my age right now. Passive restraint, anti-lock brakes, EFT. They can take the money out of your checking account every month. There's a 5% discount. Multiple car, if you have more than one car, if you've got auto and home bundled together, or if you've got auto, home, and life bundled together, all of those will work. So the key is really, I like to put as much of my insurance in one place because you can get a lot more discounts. So that's really a critical question to answer. Let's go back to story number 4. Now, with that car, we had all those Christmas presents in the back. My nephew Jeff had all the Christmas presents in the back. Was that covered by his insurance? It wasn't. Someone explained to me this way. It says the way you can understand is what's covered by your insurance is you take the car, you lift it, you put it above your head and shake it, and anything that falls out is not covered by your insurance, and anything that's attached is. So in cases like that, was the Christmas presents covered by his insurance? And the answer is no. What insurance would it have been covered by? Yeah, homeowners or renters insurance. Remember, homeowners and renters insurance is covered regardless of location. Okay, so this is the Expedition, the newer car. Let's take a look at. This is the teenage car. Again, same coverage here. Notice the difference, premium coverage, liability coverage here. This is an older vehicle. So this was 7 years older than the other one, yet it was more than double the liability coverage there. Double the cost for the same amount of coverage. Why? Yeah, teenagers. Okay. Again here, so notice again the coverage, things like here, again, good student discount. Generally what insurance companies, they'll place a person on every car. And so be aware of that. Just make sure you're doing that there. Remember I told you the story about my daughter who put her on the insurance, turned 16 on Friday, we put her on the insurance on Monday, and she totaled the car on Tuesday. Well, this is that car. So I had an insurance friend work this out for me. So a 2000 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So BIPD is bodily injury, property damage. So on the left side, left column, what we have is what's called state requirements for the state of Utah. So 25, 50, 100. Uninsured motorist, again, the same 25, 50. Underinsured. PIP is that personal injury protection, that $3,000. No, all comprehensive 500, collision 500, towing, yes. Notice the cost. Total premium is $493. Monthly premium's $82 a month. Okay? What I wanted to show with this is just see how expensive liability coverage is. Now what we've done is we've increased our individual coverage by 4 times, our accident coverage by 6 times, and our property damage by 8 times. Notice the price only went from $178 to $228. We had the same things here. What's the difference in monthly costs? $10. So what you do is you just don't buy that caffeine-free Diet Coke once a week. That'll save you enough so you can have the 4 to 6 times the coverage.
So you mentioned earlier about talking this information over with an insurance advisor. So I feel like we have a lot of different people that we can go to talk about our finances. I mean, we've got investment brokers, we've got insurance people, we've got people to help us buy our houses and tax planners. And so who do we decide to get? How much money do we plan on spending? And at what point in our lives should we think about getting these people involved in our finances?
So you'll have insurance people your entire life.
So we should do it now?
Well, yeah, you should. It's required by law to have insurance.
Well, yeah, but
Right.
I mean, there's a difference between going and getting your own plan and just kind of figuring it out as you go and going to somebody to get professional advice.
With an insurance agent, you don't pay them unless you have coverage. So what I like to do is I would talk to your friends. I would read, I just read through the consumer reports that talked about the best insurance companies in different areas. I would do your homework. A lot of times people want us to give you fish instead of teaching people how to fish. And so what's the principle here? We want to get the most coverage at the least cost. And so when you're starting off now, it's, again, if you can bundle that coverage together, you can do your home and your auto and your life or things like this, you will have a much lower cost. But I would start first with your friends. And then, who do they recommend? And realize, again, it's every dollar, a dollar less you spend on insurance is a dollar more that you can spend on your personal goals. And so the key is to be wise stewards over these things here. Okay, so that's inexpensive there. Okay, so questions on auto insurance. Again, if you're going to reduce your costs, don't reduce the liability insurance. I would encourage you to be wise in that. As I was reading Consumer Reports, they had this one chart. I'm hoping this.
Professor Sudweeks,
Mm-hmm.
while you're pulling that up, in answer to your question, I mean, if you can use an expert or a professional and it's the same cost to you, to me it makes sense to get a couple of their opinions and expertise because it's going to be the same price for you for what you get. So why not use a professional?
Okay, so things here. One moving violation. What Consumer Reports did is I think they did like 8,000 calls to different insurance companies, and they said, okay, if this happens, what's going to be the impact? So have one moving violation. It's going to cost you $225 a month or a year. Reduce comprehensive reduction from 500 to zero. So you take your deductible, drop that. It's going to cost you $260 more. Have one not at fault accident. Generally, it shouldn't impact you, but apparently it does for some companies. Look at the big ones. Have 2 DWIs. Notice, what's the biggest one? Have poor credit. So here's things to decrease your premium, become a homeowner, increase collision deductible from $500 to $1,000, buy a home, and bundle homeowners insurance with car insurance. Get married. Saves you $500 a year. But it's a nice little chart, and I like the way they put this together. So this is at the back of your what you can do to reduce your auto insurance costs. And again, it's a general example, but I thought it was good. Okay, questions on homeowners, auto insurance, and reducing your auto insurance costs. So the biggest thing is keep that credit score up. Big things if you have tickets, go to traffic school. Biggest thing, try to drive safely. Does the choice of car impact the amount you pay for auto insurance? Significantly. So buy a car that's cheap to insure too. And there's some other graphics that I may add there too. Okay, so what do you do if you're in an accident? My wife was in Heber, and she was coming off. She was on the road that goes up to Park City. And she was getting ready to go on there, and then another car started coming by. And so she stopped, and then the car behind him just ran right into the back of her. And so she was just running, and then the lady got out, and she says, this is my boyfriend's truck. I'd really prefer if we don't go to the police. I'll make sure it's right. I'll make sure you get fixed and things like that. I really, again, it's my boyfriend's truck, and we really don't want to do that. And so my wife was, she she's very kind and she says, okay, not a problem. Give me your name and we'll work things out. And so when I came home that day, she said, this is what happened. And there was enough damage that it had to be fixed. And I just said, that's probably not a good idea. What's the risk of taking someone's word that they will fix it? You really don't know. Will they really do it? And so I told her, we really need to go up. And so she called the lady and said, okay, let's meet at the Hebrew Police Department. And then we went there and they filled out the report and everything worked out well. I don't think anyone got a ticket, but what do you do when you're in an accident and why? And the important thing is that we make sure we get the help that we need. And so number one, wisdom in your actions. Help the insured, call the police, move vehicles, get the name of any witnesses. If alcohol is a concern, make sure they take a test. Number two, keep calm. Be firm on your views, even if it contradicts the other driver's comments. Again, that probably cost me $2,000 over the next 2 to 3 years of increased, maybe even more than that, insurance costs. Again, be careful, don't sign anything or don't admit guilt. What you want to do is you just want to help the people that were there. In my daughter's example, it'll probably take too long, but basically the person who caused the accident actually admitted that it was his fault. But because of the way it looked, it probably wouldn't have helped much to press that further. But record your recollections of the accident. 3, follow up properly after the accident. Get the insurance company. Call your insurance company as soon as possible. Cooperate with your insurer. Again, all records of accident expenses. And then review the settlement steps. Once the settlement steps are taken care of, are you comfortable with it? Did you think they did well? Did they take care of you? Did you get enough, did you get the sufficient money out of, your car if it was totaled? And if you're still not satisfied, you can request a meeting, contact your insurance company's consumer affairs or the insurance commissioner. So make sure you do that. Of course, I tell you that story, and almost the exact same thing happened to me on University Parkway and State Street in Orem. The car went ahead and then stopped, and I hit him. And I actually said, okay, if you'll drive over to Martin's Collision Repair, they knew us because we had done a few accidents with them. And I says, I will pay for it on the spot to get it fixed. And so be wise in what you do.
I would just add to that, so with those two things, like making sure that the police are informed so that you have any kind of police report, because there's some insurance agencies that will require a police report to validate the actual issue going on. So before you even leave the spot of the accident, so I had a truck, one of the accidents on mine, a truck backed into me while I was parked there, and I left town. It was at a park and ride. So I got back, the truck was gone, no contact information, I had nothing. Before I leave the spot, got their police report, and I called the agent beforehand, told them the issue, and both the police and the insurance agent said, you can leave, we have all the documentation we need.
Okay.
So, because if you don't get the report, sometimes they'll say, well, you didn't file a police report, we're not going to cover it.
So be wise in this. So realize they're in the business of covering risk, insurance companies. They're not in the business of covering risk indiscriminately. So you need to make sure you have the documentation. Let me just share an email. This is from another student. And he said, wife and I are living in the Bay Area, living in the city right now because tax season's so busy, haven't had time to visit the East Bay. And the little bit thing, he says, on the downside, one night after my wife picked me up from work, we parked the car on the street downtown to go out to eat, and someone broke into our window and stole my work laptop. It was a rookie mistake leaving it in the car, and now I know better. Luckily, my work just reissued me another the next day. Unfortunately, it was $200 to fix the window. That experience got me thinking about our discussion on renter's insurance in your class. My wife and I don't have renter's insurance right now, but I know we would feel a lot safer if we did. I was looking through your slides and couldn't find too much information on renter's insurance, so I was wondering if you recommend a certain type or a company. We live in a rental apartment right now, and my wife is a photographer, so she has some pretty expensive equipment, including computer equipment. Any knowledge you could share would be greatly appreciated. What do you think? Renter's insurance, good idea or bad idea? Yeah? So how expensive is renter's insurance? It's cheap. So let me just use a little policy. This is a policy here again. So what we've got here is personal property, $20,000. What's probably the most important part about renter's insurance? Is it the personal property? Or is it the liability? Let's say you're in an apartment and your 4-year-old left their skateboard out there, and someone goes and steps on that skateboard and breaks their leg. Are they going to go after the condo insurance or your apartment insurance? No, they'll come after you and your liability insurance. So how about you've got this apartment. Does the apartment insurance cover all of your equipment and stuff? The things that you have in the house? Or does it just cover the walls and the roofs and the ceilings like that? And so it's really important that you have. So you've got personal property, loss of use. What happens if the apartment's damaged? Personal liability, $100,000. Guest medical, $1,000. Contents replacements. What's the difference between replacement and contents replacement? Is there a difference? Let's say you've got a TV, you bought it 10 years ago, and it's a 28-inch TV. When the insurance comes to replace that, what will they replace it with? You paid $200 or $300 for it 10 years ago. You'll probably get $20 or $30 for it. What happens if you get contents replacement? If it was a 28-inch TV, you'll get another 28-inch TV. So be aware there. Deductibles, all perils, $500. Premium, $89 policy, gives a total monthly premium, $8. How many people here have renter's insurance? Why do you have it? Erin, why do you have it?
Because, I don't know, my husband and I, we have a lot of personal property.
Okay.
And so we actually spent a whole evening just totaling up how much personal property we had, and then decided that we wanted to get another insurance for it.
Do you have your renter's insurance from the same people who give you your car insurance?
No, we're getting that switched over this month.
Okay. Anyone have renter's insurance from the same people who do their car? Nick?
Yeah.
So how much does your renter's insurance cost you?
It's $10 extra a month.
A month.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually many people, often the discount from your auto insurance will be enough to cover your renter's insurance. Anyone here make money on their renter's insurance? But that's how cheap it is. Let's go back to story number 4. If they would have had renter's insurance, would that have covered the Christmas presents in the back of the car? And the answer is yes. So my point here is just to emphasize how cheap it is. And again, many people actually make money on the deal just because the discount from auto insurance is enough. Or it will reduce your cost substantially. I think the most someone's made is like $10 on the deal or something like that. And many people, the cost is really low. Lisa.
One thing I think to be aware of, like I lost my wedding ring after I was first married. I mean, luckily I found it a couple months later, but I hadn't had it appraised, so it wasn't covered.
Okay.
If I didn't have an appraisal in my insurance that I turned into my insurance, they said they wouldn't cover it.
Right. Realize too, if you've got photographic insurance, lots of other things, you'll probably need to put another rider on it. And that's the nice thing about insurance. They can customize it to fit your needs, and it'll cost you a little bit more. But renter's insurance is very inexpensive. So we encourage you to look into that. And again, if you do it from the same company that does your auto insurance. Okay. Yes.
Back to the auto insurance, but you talked about finding a car that has a low insurance cost.
Right.
Do you have, I
a resource that we can go to see how much certain cars will cost?
It's just a nice article in Consumer Reports. It's up on my desk if you want to just come by. And they give you kind of some general information. Generally, cars, they have an ISO designation between 1 and 27. And the higher that number, the more expensive it is to insure. And so the lower the number it is. So that article gives some ideas. Quick question. My friend shared this story. This person came home. He had a home with a detached garage. He came home and he noticed, turned his car off. He noticed there was some gas leaking. He had a hole in his gas tank in the car. So he kind of thought that was kind of strange. And so what he did is he got this bowl and he stuck it under the car. He came back a couple hours later and he noticed that was filled up with gas. And so he thought, oh, this is weird. So he went and picked that up and he went and poured it down the toilet. So what happens when you have gas and water? What rises to the surface? Okay, the gas does. And so the fumes pretty soon came out the toilet, came around. His water heater ignited, had an electronic ignition. It ignited the gas. Question, was that covered by his homeowner's insurance? It actually was. So be wise in what we do. Be wise in what we do. Okay, let's go do it quickly. Let's go to homeowners insurance. So let's talk quickly about what areas are covered by homeowners insurance. What are the key areas? Number one is property, the dwelling. What it does is it protects the dwelling and attachments. It doesn't cover any damage to land. So what's the difference between a car and a house? Can you move the land in a vehicle? And number two, coverage B is other structures. This is other unattached dwellings or other unattached dwellings on property. So at landscapings, we have a gazebo in our backyard, which is kind of nice. With 7 kids, 6 daughters, we designed our backyard for wedding receptions. But our other structures, so that gazebo is covered under the other structure. So at landscaping as well as building, it doesn't cover structures used for business purposes. So realize this doesn't work if you use it for business purposes. And generally, other structures is limited to a percentage of your dwelling. Number 3, personal property. Notice here it covers personal property regardless of location. So if your location is, again, in the back of your car, how about when you're here at school? Does your parents' homeowners insurance cover your things while at school? And the answer is yes, because it's regardless of location. And then we've got personal property limits. Again, personal property limited to 50% of the home's coverage. Why is there a limit on things like cash, gold, securities, silverware, things like that? Thoughts? Chad?
They just don't want you to have tons of valuable things.
Yeah. And in case you have those things, what do you need to do? Yeah, get a rider on top of that there too. So, and then loss of use. When my wife was growing up, her younger brother, he was then about 4. He liked to play with candles. And so he happened to grab some candles and he was in the closet. And needless to say, those candles caught some clothes on fire, which tended to burn down the house. So the insurance company paid in and they lived in a hotel room for about 4 months and ate out at McDonald's almost every day. But for loss of use, again, 20% of the amount of coverage of the home. So additional living expenses, fair rental value, and prohibited use. So I don't think it was the funnest time, but Yeah.
Earlier you talked about you could still have your parents' homeowners insurance cover your liability, like if you're elsewhere. What are the requirements for that?
No, it's the belongings.
The belongings, yeah. Like say your belongings get stolen. What are the requirements for that for your parents' homeowners insurance to still count for you?
So number one, you've got your deductible first, and then it covers over and above the deductible.
Like,
so,
is there a certain like age limit that it has to be at, or is there anything like, or does it just depends on insurance?
My guess is if you're still on your parents' insurance, then you're still covered.
Like their health insurance, or
No, you're there.
okay, so they put their names under
That's a
it?
good question. I don't have a good answer for that.
I was gonna say, does that like cancel out the need for renter's insurance then if you cover that?
No, but you don't have the so that's just for the belongings. It's not the liability insurance. The most important thing I think is that liability insurance. So I don't have a good answer. I'll see if I can find that answer for you.
Okay.
And then liability applies to all of it. Limits of liability, all contract amounts, medical payments, and other coverage. So what we want to do here is just quickly cover a couple of things. So these are the different types of policy, homeowners policies. And so HO2 is your basic. So here's your broad form. What broad form, it means it only covers name-specific perils. So if it's not listed, you're not covered. So what do we want? Do we want broad form or do we want open peril? So what you want is open peril that says unless it's specifically excluded, it's coverage. So here's broader form includes open perils. Here's renters. Here broader form includes open perils coverage on personal property. Notice here is this is 10% of A. This is 70% of A. Most of this works off of the coverage A, which is your dwelling. So we need to be aware of that. You know, all forms exclude law, earth movement, water damage, power failure, neglect, war, nuclear accidents, and intentional loss.
So when
Aaron.
you say covers only name-specific perils, like
Right.
how specific?
Windstorm, flood,
Oh.
things like this.
So say
Aaron.
you live in a basement apartment,
Okay?
and your landlords, like the homeowners, live in the house
Okay.
above you, attached to it. Would their homeowners insurance count for all of your stuff underneath, since it's
It
the
would
same
not,
house?
because again, that's used for business purposes.
Okay.
So the fact that you're renting that from them,
What if you're not renting it and you're living there for free, although there's a contract still?
I would still have renter's insurance.
Okay.
And again, the thing about renter's insurance, it's just so cheap. The renter's insurance, generally, many of you will find that your renter's insurance is going to cost you $2 to $5 a month. That's all it's going to cost.
Ours costs
$1. So that's after.
$1. We join it with their auto.
Yeah, with the auto insurance. So his renter's insurance costs him a whole $1 a month. So the key, if we can get the coverage and very limited stuff, then I think it's important. And so, you know, just realize with your policy you can get riders on things, other things that are important. Okay, let me go on. Liability coverage. How about anyone heard of a term called an umbrella? What's an umbrella? It's an umbrella policy. And is it a good idea? Again, I just use stories from Park City. But there was someone rollerblading in front of a very expensive house. They hit a rock. They were on the sidewalk. They hit a rock. They broke their legs or something like that, and they sued the owners of the house, even though they were on the sidewalk. Are we in a litigious society? Yeah, we are. So what is an umbrella policy? It's a policy that goes over all the tops of all your other policies. So notice here, this is ours. We just had a policy on top of it. Notice under this umbrella, each of the products have to be insured first. So you have liability coverage with the policy first. And notice we're required $250, $500, $100 on each of those. And then once you're doing that, you can buy another policy that allows you to have insurance over and above that. So what happens if my kids are in an accident and they get sued? First thing, it's going to go on to this liability coverage here. And then the second thing, it's going to go to the umbrella policy. What you don't want to do is you don't want to spend your life, saving for things and then lose it because you weren't willing to use adequate insurance protection here. So notice here we've got owner residents and motorized vehicles and youthful drivers and unlicensed recreational vehicle, things like that. So just be aware. Okay. So I think the PowerPoints in the book I think cover this well, but as your asset size grows, it may be necessary to do this just to be on the safe side. Okay. Covered a lot of stuff today. Takeaways. Takeaways.
I need to bundle insurance.
Nathan.
With the same number so it's easier to get discounts.
Bundle your insurance because it's easier to get discounts. And realize too, different insurance companies price risk differently. So shop around. Other takeaways.
I like what you just said. If you don't want to spend your life saving for things and then just to lose it because you didn't want to spend a lot on insurance.
Don't spend your life saving for things and lose it because you just weren't able to spend. So make sure you have adequate insurance.
Not be too nice in an accident.
In accidents, don't be too nice, be truthful. It would have saved us a significant amount of money, but I wouldn't have as good of stories to tell. So, other takeaways? Natalie.
The age isn't a barrier to theft. I'm just laughing. I've been laughing through this whole presentation because on Friday I looked at the assignment and about renters and homeowners insurance, and I had written like, I don't think I need it because I'm a college student. So I got my car back on Saturday, got broken into on Saturday, and got stuff stolen out of it. And so it's just the irony of, I thought I didn't need it, but no, you do need it no matter what age you are.
Yeah, you do need insurance no matter what age. And realize too, as Blake said, he pays $1 a month for his renter's insurance. One more takeaway. Go on, go ahead, Chad.
Being in the business school, look at the cost-benefit analysis. I think can we save money by not having insurance? But I think the peace of mind is something that you can't put a price on. And I think that's something that makes insurance work.
Yeah, the peace of mind you can't put a price on. So here's my takeaways. Number one, insurance is necessary, but we should be wise insurance consumers. Every dollar we save is a dollar we can use to cover, we can use to accomplish our own goals. Number two, get renter's insurance. It's so cheap. The reduction in costs from the auto policy should make this very cheap insurance. And number three, the purpose of insurance is to help us do what we could not do without our own assets. And again, the purpose of the Savior is to help us do the same, but what we could not do with our own efforts. Thanks, everyone. We will see you on Wednesday.